HOA said my helicopter was illegal. FAA called my pad one of the best in the county. Have you ever built something extraordinary only to have someone try to tear it down? Jonathan Pierce stood in his backyard, the hum of his sleek black Robinson R-44 helicopter fading as its rotors slowed. The sun dipped low over the rolling hills of Willow Creek, a gated community where manicured lawns and uniformity reigned supreme. He just returned from a quick flight to check on his family's vineyard an hour away, a trip that took minutes by air instead of hours by car. His private helipad, a pristine concrete square tucked behind his modern estate, was his pride and joy, a testament to his hard work as a tech entrepreneur. But as he stepped out of the cockpit, a white SUV screeched to a halt at his gate. Karen Whitmore, the HOA president, stormed out, her clipboard clutched like a weapon. "This helicopter is a violation of community bylaws," she shouted, her voice shrill enough to wake the neighbors. "You're endangering us all, and I'm shutting this down." Jonathan had anticipated resistance when he moved to Willow Creek 2 years ago. The HOA's 50-page rulebook was suffocating, dictating everything from fence heights to approved flower species. But he'd done his homework. His helipad was built to FAA standards with clear approach paths, a lighted wind cone, and even a fire suppression system, costing him a cool $20,000 to ensure perfection. He'd filed FAA Form 7480-1 for airspace approval, secured a favorable determination, and checked local zoning laws. His property at the edge of the community on 5 acres was far from congested areas, and his flights were infrequent, mostly for business. Yet Karen, with her self-appointed authority, was determined to make his life hell. She claimed the helicopter was a public safety hazard and violated the HOA's vague nuisance clause. Her petition, signed by a dozen neighbors, demanded he dismantle the helipad immediately. The truth was, Karen's crusade wasn't about safety, it was personal. Jonathan's modern glass and steel home, with its helipad and solar panels, clashed with the neighborhood's cookie-cutter aesthetic. Karen, a real estate agent who prided herself on Willow Creek's traditional charm, saw Jonathan as a threat to property values. She'd been gunning for him since he refused to paint his garage door beige to match the cul-de-sac's approved palette. Behind closed doors, she rallied her loyalists, spreading rumors that his helicopter would crash into their homes or scare their kids. But Jonathan wasn't one to back down. He invited Karen to a meeting at his home, hoping to explain the helipad's compliance with FAA regulations and its minimal impact. She arrived with 2 board members, her eyes scanning for infractions. "This isn't over," she warned, ignoring his detailed presentation on airspace safety and noise levels. "I've already contacted the county." The confrontation escalated at the next HOA meeting held in the community center's stuffy conference room. Karen stood at the podium, her PowerPoint slides filled with exaggerated claims. Helicopters increase crime. Property values will plummet. The room buzzed with murmurs of agreement from her clique, but not everyone was convinced. Enter Sarah Nguyen, an unexpected ally. A quiet retiree who'd lived in Willow Creek for a decade, Sarah was a former aerospace engineer who'd worked on helicopter safety systems. She stood up, her voice calm but firm. "Karen, your claims are baseless. The FAA regulates helicopters, not HOAs. Jonathan's helipad meets federal standards, and studies show heliports don't affect property values." She cited a 2010 report from Raymond A. Sims and Associates, noting that Somerset County, New Jersey, had thriving heliports in high-value estates. The room fell silent. Karen's face reddened, but she doubled down, accusing Sarah of being bought by Jonathan. Sarah's intervention was a game-changer. She'd reviewed Jonathan's FAA documentation and even visited his helipad, impressed by its design. She reached out to the local FAA Flight Standards District Office, which sent an inspector to evaluate the site. The inspector, a no-nonsense veteran named Tom Bradley, was floored. "This is one of the best private helipads I've seen in the county," he told Jonathan, praising the clear approach paths and compliance with Advisory Circular 150/5390-2D. He issued a glowing report which Jonathan shared with the HOA board. Karen, undeterred, pivoted to local zoning, claiming the county would side with her. She filed a formal complaint alleging the helipad violated noise ordinances and required a special use permit. The county hearing was a circus. Karen arrived with a lawyer and a stack of petitions, painting Jonathan as a reckless billionaire flaunting his wealth. Her witnesses, mostly her inner circle, complained about constant noise. Despite Jonathan's flight logs showing only 6 trips that month, Jonathan, armed with Sarah's expertise and the FAA report, presented an airtight case. He showed noise measurements taken during takeoffs, well within the county's 60 decibel limit for residential areas. He highlighted the helipad's emergency potential, noting that during last year's wildfires, a similar setup in a neighboring town had saved lives by airlifting supplies. Sarah testified, dismantling Karen's arguments with technical precision. Then came the twist. The county planner revealed that Karen's own husband, a developer, had quietly applied for a variance to build a commercial helipad for a luxury condo project nearby. The hypocrisy stunned the room. Karen's campaign wasn't about safety, but about controlling the narrative to benefit her family's business. Karen's case crumbled. The county upheld Jonathan's helipad, citing its compliance with zoning and FAA regulations. The planner even commended its safety features, suggesting it could serve as a model for future projects. Karen's petition was dismissed, and her credibility took a hit when neighbors learned of her husband's plans. At the next HOA meeting, her allies were noticeably absent. Sarah proposed a motion to amend the bylaws, clarifying that FAA-compliant helipads were permissible with proper documentation. It passed overwhelmingly, with even some of Karen's former supporters voting in favor. Jonathan's helipad was safe, and Karen's reign as HOA dictator was over. She resigned as president a week later, citing personal reasons, but whispers of her husband's failed venture followed her. Jonathan didn't gloat. Instead, he invited the community to an open house, offering helicopter rides to kids and explaining how the helipad could benefit Willow Creek in emergencies. Sarah helped organize, and Tom Bradley even stopped by, sharing stories of heliports saving lives during disasters. The event shifted opinions. Neighbors who'd once sided with Karen now saw the helipad's value. Jonathan's gesture turned skeptics into supporters, and the community began to embrace his vision of blending innovation with practicality. In the end, Jonathan's helipad stood as a symbol of resilience against petty tyranny. He didn't just win a fight, he showed that progress doesn't bow to fearmongering. His story reminds us that standing up for what's right, backed by facts and allies, can change hearts and minds. What do you think? Was Jonathan justified in fighting the HOA, or should he have compromised to keep the peace? Share your thoughts below.